From deep in the Burbank Media District, it's time for another edition of My Burbank Talks. This podcast is presented by the staff of My Burbank. Now, let's see what's on today's agenda as we join our program.
Hello, everyone. This is Devin, and you're listening to another episode of Local Legends with Devin, a segment exploring the journeys of people from all walks of life who have ties to the city of Burbank. Our guest today is the vocal music director of John Burroughs High School, Brendan Jennings. The John Burroughs High School Vocal Music Association is known as one of the best public school music programs nationally, and under Brendan's leadership, the program consists of 4 curricular choirs, 3 extracurricular ensembles, and a tech theater program. Brendan is also a John Burroughs High School alumnus, and he participated in the Burroughs music program as a student before going on to serve as vocal music director. Brendan, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. Well, to begin with, before we get into Burroughs, I'd like to talk about what started your interest in performing. So, what sparked your love for musical theater and choir?
Well, I started at a super young age. I my mom is a preschool teacher for many years at the preschool at the Burbank First United Methodist Church, and they had a children's choir program there, and that's kind of where I got my start. I think she even talked me in a year early, so I was like pre-kindergarten or something, and joined the children's choir, and she could just tell how much I loved it and that it was a really, it's a great program. And so I came up through those children's choirs and handbell groups at the church. And then that kind of was a natural lead into the music programs in Burbank Unified School District. So I was in choir at John Muir Middle School, and then choir at John Burroughs High School. And then, you know, I mean, John Burroughs really changed my life. Um, like developed a passion for all kinds of music, but musical theater especially, and classical music. And then when I was applying to colleges, I was still had like this dream of being the CEO of Disney or something one day. So I was like applying to half business schools and half music schools, and I ended up choosing USC because it had great music and great business, just in case I changed my mind. And so I ended up going to USC as a vocal performance major, and I kind of never looked back. I ended up in music education, and my predecessor at Burroughs, Mary Rago, hired me back while I was in college. So it became like a side job for me, helping out at Burroughs. And then when I graduated, she said it's time for me to retire, and I ended up taking over the programs. The rest is history.
So, while you were at USC and assisting at Burroughs, what was that experience like? How did learning from Mary Rago prepare you to next lead the program at Burroughs?
Um, I mean, I learned a lot. My first job at Burroughs was directing and choreographing the after school men's choir. And so these were students that I was like 1, 2 years older than at the time, and who were, you know, guys that I had been in school with. And all of a sudden, I'm in charge of running rehearsals. And so that was a real crash course in classroom management. I would go to my voice lessons at USC, and my teacher was like, "What are you doing with your voice? Your voice is thrash." And I'm like, "Well, I'm just screaming at a bunch of high school kids." So I quickly learned that screaming at high school kids is not the way to go, um, and kind of developed my own style. But I mean, Mary ran a great program, and I just learned a lot from her in terms of musicality, and she's a really great conductor. She's one of my conducting idols. Um, and so I kind of added all of those inputs together. My studies at USC, I was really involved in the a cappella group scene at USC, started a group there and learned a lot doing that. And, kind of put all the pieces together and, you know, develop my own style, I think. And here I am.
Yeah, another thing I thought was interesting that I've heard you say in the past is during that time, prior to Mary announcing her retirement, you took a job as a real estate broker's assistant just in the interim before becoming vocal music director. So I wonder, with that role, what did that teach you, or how did it reinforce to you that teaching would be the right path?
Yeah, that was an interesting year when she was retiring. She kind of did it secretly, and she gave 1 year notice to myself and Jen, who's the artistic director of the program. And so, that was a great year of learning for me because then I was kind of committing to, applying for that job in a year. Um, and so I was able to like really pay attention closely to things in the program, but also I needed a job because I was finished with school and I needed to start paying this loans back. So yeah, I took a job as a real estate agent, a broker's assistant, and it was an interesting experience. I think it was good because I needed a break at that moment from being in the educational system 100%. Um, and it gave me a chance to flex, my business brain, my money brain a little bit, and see how that world, is put together. And at the same time, it reinforced that that felt like a job. That felt like, something that I was doing to earn money and that I could do, but it wasn't my passion. And that was kind of the big takeaway that, you know, if you love your job, you never work a day in your life, as they say. And um, I didn't love that job, but I became more and more certain that teaching music was where I should be. Um, and I really feel like I got my dream job at, 24 years old, and have been enjoying it ever since.
So then, once you did take over as vocal music director, what was that transition period like when you actually stepped into the role?
Well, it was on one hand well curated because Mary knew she was retiring. She knew she wanted me to take over. So like she had had me help plan the calendar. I created Burroughs on Broadway sort of in secret. Like we just put this mystery show on the calendar, and I ended up doing it my first year of teaching that Burroughs had never done before. And so everybody was kind of like lined up to help me and make the transition smooth. But at the same time, the way the process worked, I mean, by the time she got all of her things together and went to the district office and retired, I didn't then they have to post the job, then they have to do the interviews for the job. By the time I got hired, it was like the Friday before teachers went back.
Oh, wow.
So I was kind of like planning to have a job, but not 100% sure I had a job. And so that part was very stressful. And I kind of felt like my first year, probably 2 years, honestly. I oftentimes say that I kind of blacked out my first 2 years because as much as you think you know what it takes, I had no idea what it takes to to be a successful teacher. And I think, most days I was probably there until 9 or 10 p.m. And so I was working these insane, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. And it was just because I had to figure out what I was doing. I mean, I just didn't know all the things that I didn't know. And so my first 2 years were a lot of hard work, because I felt a huge responsibility to keep the program at the level that it was at already. I didn't want it to fall apart because of me, because Mary was a legend and the program was great when I took over. So um, that was a stressful transition, but I also had a great group of seniors. The senior class of 2007, my first year, was they just like really took care of me and protected me and, kept the kids organized and kept things moving forward when I was like floundering. So it all ended up working out, and we had a great year, and that started, a really good era for the program, and we just kind of built from there. And once I once I became comfortable in the job, then I felt like, we could start growing things and adding more things and, you know,
Yeah.
doing more.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I think we're just going to take a brief pause and then we're going to talk more Burroughs VMA in just a sec.
For all of your plumbing needs, look no further than Plumbing Dudes. This local family owned business provides quality services from trained professionals who are honest with their customers. Whether you're looking for a drain cleaning, pipe repair, or water heater help, the techs at Plumbing Dudes have you covered. They'll walk you through the process, making sure you know exactly how they'll fix the issue step by step. With Plumbing Dudes, prices are affordable and the service is superior. Give them a call today at 818-805-4013 to learn more and schedule an appointment or get a free estimate.
Okay, so we're back now. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, Brendan, with John Burroughs High School VMA, there are 4 curricular choirs and 3 extracurricular ensembles as well. Can you go through those just a little bit for me, all of those, Brendan?
Sure.
Okay.
So we have the 4 curricular choirs. We have our intermediate treble group, which is called Decibels. And then our intermediate mixed choir is called Sound Waves. We have an advanced treble choir called Sound Sensations. And then we have our advanced mixed choir called Powerhouse. Um, and those are the classes that I teach every day. Powerhouse has a double period. They start zero nice and early at 7:30 now, not 7 a.m. since the
Mhm.
time change of high school. Um, and then after school, we have 2 a cappella groups, 2 contemporary a cappella groups, a treble group called Muses, and a mixed group called Neochromatics. And then we have the after school men's show choir that I used to direct and choreograph. And I do not anymore. The after school groups have coaches who direct them. So the men's group is now directed by Dominic Matas and Dan Scoville. I just get to enjoy from the audience.
Well, between the, ensembles, how many total students are there generally in the music program?
Um, we're right around 200 for next year. Um, it's been as big as like 220, and then obviously during the pandemic we had our numbers were falling a little bit, so I think we're down to like 150. But we're pretty much back to our normal average is about 200 music students.
And how many kids will audition, about how many each year?
um I mean, just a little over 200. We we're not in the business of turning people away generally. Every so often there's a student who, you know, really physically can't match pitch, or that, doesn't have the skill that we need. It's kind of tricky because we don't exactly have a beginning choir because the middle school feeder programs are so strong. The students that come to me are just not really beginning students. And so it can be tricky when a student comes in from somewhere, hasn't been in choir in middle school, or doesn't have any experience. Um, we can usually, work with that student to get them up to speed. But every so often there's, somebody who I just don't think is going to be able to keep up with the pace. But more often than not, the students that aren't taken into choir are for either academic reasons or discipline reasons, because we expect high level behavior and, good academics from all of our students, because the music program is a privilege to be
Right.
in, as we say. So
Yes.
everybody's got to keep their grades up.
For students who are interested in joining the music program for the first time, what do you say to them in terms of what to expect or how to prepare?
Well, I usually, try to remind them that they don't have to be perfect at everything, because, if you come to a show and you see Powerhouse on stage, or just see the level that some of the upperclassmen are at, it can be super intimidating. Um, and I'm like, this is what my job is. I'm here to teach you. You don't have to be perfect at everything. You just, you need to have a love for music. You need to prepare a song. That's kind of the main thing. Our auditions include um, an a cappella song, 32 bars, like 60 to 90 seconds. So just a short excerpt. Choose any song you feel like shows your voice off. Um, and so really work on that, really know that, feel comfortable with that, because auditioning is the most nerve-wracking part of being in choir. Once you get over that hump, the rest of it is a lot more fun and less scary. But you have to stand in front of a panel and sing by yourself a cappella, and that can be super scary. And then in terms of the dancing, I mean, I do, obviously we are a show choir. We do all kinds of music. We do several classical concerts and a musical theater show, but there is singing and dancing involved, and so that can be the intimidating factor for some kids. Some of them feel really comfortable singing and are super nervous dancing, or comfortable in their bodies, especially incoming ninth graders, coming out of that middle school era. um, and we just, we try to hold their hands. We When we're working with the middle schoolers, we bring um, some of our upperclassmen, to kind of help coach and talk them through it. Watch out. I have them, be careful, watch out for the kids that are in the back who might, bolt at any moment, and because they're scared of dancing. And we just kind of like, just, it's really about the effort, more than it is about the perfection. Like, you just have to be willing to try and willing to throw yourself in, um, because we have excellent choreographers who work with our groups and who do training. And at the beginning of the year, we're doing dance boot camps, and they're learning all the fundamentals. And so most of the time, you don't have to be an incredible dancer to start. I know I wasn't when I started, and you learn. And that's kind of the growth arc we try to explain. But yeah, it's auditioning is scary.
And each year together, you present four big shows. You have Burroughs on Broadway, Holiday Spectacular, your pop show, and then spring concert. The shows are amazing. I know everyone in the community looks forward to them. I can imagine a whole lot goes into them. What is the preparation process like for you, the students, and the whole creative team for the shows?
Well, since we're midsummer right now, we are in the heat of the creative team process, planning all of the shows for next year. Um, Everything from, deciding themes to picking songs, finding arrangements and sheet music. We're kind of doing all of that right now for the entire year. And then, once the school year starts, we sort of have an established pace. I mean, we start the year very much working on technique training. I bring in the classical music first. I want the kids to develop, good vocal technique. Um, and then we kind of transition into working on the Broadway shows, which is good, because it's kind of usually the easier, in terms of the difficulty level of the arrangements and the choreography. So it's a good first show for us. Burroughs on Broadway in October. And then we have our, we do a classical concert in November. We kind of polish off those pieces while we're starting to work on the holiday program. The holiday program in December is a real quick. It happened so fast. We're at the end of the first semester. Big collaboration at the school between the instrumental and the dance and the vocal programs. So that's really fun, just getting to do a lot of collaborations. And then we start, show choir in the spring. So we're hoping to take all of the skills that we've built through the first semester and put them into kind of like the most innovative, high level, boundary pushing material that we've been designing, since May, June of the previous year, and put all of that on stage, and we premiere those shows at our pop show, which is late February. And then that puts us into competition season. We're competing throughout March and April. We host a competition at Burroughs as well called Music Showcase, which is a gigantic event. And then before you know it, it's the last month of school and it's May, and we do one more classical concert, a spring concert, which is the first half classical, and then the second half is like a farewell to the competition shows. And before we know it, we're on summer vacation and the whole process starts over again.
And another subject I wanted to get into a little bit was Glee. So, uh, Glee started in '09, went until 2015, but it's been pretty well documented that the music program at Burroughs was one source of inspiration for Ryan Murphy when he co-created Glee. Uh, Show choir, I feel like, is still appreciated so much today, but at that time, it really felt like it was just becoming really big and popping up a lot in mainstream pop culture with projects like Glee. Can you tell me about Burroughs' connection to Glee and your most memorable experiences from that time?
Sure. It actually started, the first I heard of Glee was when the front office at Burroughs, I think, called me on a Friday and said, there's a TV show that is shooting a pilot and they're going to use your classroom. And so, can you make sure to like put away your stuff extra this weekend and lock things up? And they're like, it's a show. It's like kind of about what you do. It's like about Glee clubs or something. And I was just like, a TV show about Glee clubs, that'll never be popular. And and um, so I did, kind of put things away. And then I come back Monday morning, and honestly, it was total mayhem. There was like furniture and stuff like just sitting out on the street that had been left there that they'd taken out of my room. I went in and the piano was didn't play because they had opened the piano up and put dampening cloth between the hammers and the keys so that you could play it silently for camera, but they didn't take it out. So I like couldn't teach any of my classes. So I'm like calling the front office furious, like, you tell this production company to get back here and fix this stuff, and they left my stuff everywhere and blah blah blah. And I was just kind of like pissed. But they came back and they kind of rectified everything. And I think the production company that did the pilot wasn't the one that ended up like continuing with the show. But yeah, it premiered later, and I thought that the show was like about like like college glee clubs, like stand and sing choirs. I didn't realize that that name was their version of show choir, you know. And so they started promoting the show, and it premieres, and it's a huge hit. And um, you watch the pilot, and you can see my classroom, and then shortly after they recreate my room on a set somewhere. Um, so and it felt like too, watching the early episodes, like and they did shoot more things here and there at school, but they also recreated some of the hallways at Burroughs. And it was like they contacted the construction company and got like the exact flooring and the exact wall. Like it just looks so much like our school, um, in some of the areas, of the show. Not the theater ever. That was like they shot that at a different school, but just like the hallways and the classrooms and stuff really felt like Burroughs. So it was a connection right from the start. And then I think one of the biggest things was that, um, the production, or the cast of Glee was going on the Oprah Winfrey show, like after the premiere, after they were a big hit, and the Oprah Winfrey show wanted to have a real show choir. And so the Oprah Winfrey show contacted one of the um, one of the competitions, one of the like companies that runs now, and asked them for a list of the top 10 choirs in the country. We were on that list, from that company, and they sent us all messages saying, "Would you please submit your, uh, 2009, 2010, the year after the premiere, show choir shows, like a video? We're looking for a number to be on the Oprah Winfrey show." And so I'm assuming all these choirs kind of submit their videos. We submit our video, and I end up getting a call from the producers, and they said, "Hey, so we got everybody's videos, but the number that we want on the show is actually the number from your 2009 show that we've been using as a placeholder for our run of show this whole time. And we didn't like any of the videos as much as we liked this one song from your show last year. Can you recreate it for us for the Oprah Winfrey show?" And of course, you don't say no to Oprah. So we said, of course we can, even though we didn't have all the costumes anymore because the kids take their costumes with them and they graduated. And, we asked, like, can we bring last year's kids back? And they said, no, they need to be current high school kids. So we're like, okay, we can teach the number to the new kids. We can, you know, call the seniors from last year and get them to like let us borrow their costumes. And uh, it was a whole thing. And so we ended up doing it. We went on the Oprah show, and that was kind of like the big the big boom of like, oh, this is the real life Glee. Like John Burroughs and like the cast members came to the school to surprise the kids, to tell them that they were going on the Oprah Winfrey show. And so the cast members got to meet the kids, and then it became a connection. And all of a sudden, we're doing like Fox like premieres, like we're performing for like when their season 2 premiere, or we're performing for like Glee related events all over Los Angeles. Um, and we got to meet the cast a bunch of different times in a bunch of different places, and they kind of like considered us their real life school. And we got some fantastic opportunities because of it. Um, so it was a real interesting era. It was a very busy era because we continued to do all of our regular calendar, but we were also throwing, crazy gigs on top of things. We went to Hong Kong, we went to Beijing to perform. Like, it was wild. It was wild. Show choir definitely real hot, uh, for a bit.
That's awesome. That performance on Oprah was amazing. That's so funny that it played out that way. But you guys made it work.
And they didn't let us tell the kids because they wanted to do that surprise with the cast. And it was getting later and later and later. By the time they actually filmed that surprise, it was like under 2 weeks. And yes, the kids who had been in the group the year before knew the number, but like half the kids didn't know the number. And so we were like really pressuring the producers, like, we have to tell the kids, like, we need time to learn this number. But yeah, it worked out. The kids rose to the occasion
It worked
and just
out.
like had a last minute trip to Chicago, um, which is just, they could have easily there's, you know, a number of really great groups who are in the Midwest, and they could have easily like put a group on a bus and had them go to the studio in Chicago, but they chose to fly out the entire choir from Burbank, California to Chicago. So we were very grateful to be considered.
Under your leadership, the program has continued to do so well, and with over a dozen national championships, you all have really set the standard for show choir. So with your program at Burroughs leading the way, how have you seen show choir evolve over the years, and where do you maybe see it going in the years ahead?
Yeah. Um, there's actually a book coming out that kind of details this whole transformation and how Powerhouse specifically has kind of pushed the genre forward. But a dear friend of the program, who's also a photographer, his name is Hawken, um, is doing like releasing a 10-year sort of retrospective of his photography of our shows. Um, but in the book, he like talks about the story, this, and really it really a lot of it comes down to our artistic director, Jennings. She's the creative mind behind the Powerhouse shows for the last long time, many, many years. And uh, once I took over, because I remember when I was an assistant in the program, I remember her kind of trying to push ideas and Mary Rago being very resistant sometimes to like these trying new things, and I was like the mediator of the team, trying to, you know, get everybody on the same page. And when I took over, I was kind of like, you know, let's do it. Let's do the wild thing, the risky thing, you know, designing shows that may or may not um, do well competitively, you know, going to competitions and not worrying about whether or not you're winning, but really worrying about the artistic integrity of what you're putting on stage, was a big thing. But yeah, I mean, Jen just really, she had a vision, and it was a lot more theatrical. Show choir used to be, you know, big hair, sparkly dress, and five songs that had nothing to do with each other, just kind of glitz and glam. That's what it was. That's what a lot of people still kind of think it is. Um, but Jen wanted to do more. You know, she wanted to tell a story. She wanted to evoke emotion. Um, and so, you know, back in even 2007, 2008, 2009, my first 3 years, um, she was really pushing the boundaries of, you know, theming shows after global warming and, you know, a depression era circus, and then the famous show that got us on Oprah, the um, Who Made Up All the Rules, which was kind of like, you know, a Victorian era. Um, I don't even know how to describe that show, but she just kind of took show choir to different places and time periods, and because we started to do so well, we were like becoming something else, and the quality of it was undeniable. Um, we were winning big competitions, and, you know, people started to notice, like, and it's the natural, you know, the natural ebb and flow of the world is, you know, whoever is successful, then people will try to copy that success. And so um, the show choir world has kind of pushed in that direction, and now there's a lot of really interesting shows and a lot of really artistic, um, you know, costuming that matches the music you're doing was kind of Jen's first radical idea. We used to like just wear a sparkly dress, and Jen is like, you know, if you're gonna wear a sequin dress, maybe that fits for like putting on the Ritz, but if you want to do like hip hop music, what sense does that make? and there were still people, wearing a sequin dress and heels and like trying to do hip hop, and it just didn't make any sense. And so matching the costuming to the music, having the lyrics of the music, mean something in a story so that the performers can connect to it emotionally, and then that will bring the audience in. And so we've we've done a lot of incredible shows over the years, and we've been lucky enough to be very recognized for it. But we've also had years where, you know, the judges didn't get what we were doing, and we didn't do well competitively, and those are some of our favorite shows. Those are some of the shows that push things forward the most. So um, you gotta kind of just follow your heart, and let the art speak, and don't worry about winning and losing. And in the end, that's the best lesson for the kids. Artistic integrity above all.
Absolutely. With your time first starting off being in the music program as a student and now, of course, being vocal music director, looking back on your years so far with Burroughs, what stands out to you? What memories or accomplishments are some of the most memorable?
Well, as a student, I really remember um, our national competition when I was a freshman. Um, it was hosted at Disneyland, and there was choirs from all over the country. One in particular that we saw and were like jaw dropped, and we never thought that we could beat. And so when we won that competition, it was the first time that Burroughs had won a national competition when I was a freshman in high school. Um, and that was kind of I think that was Jen's my freshman year of high school was Jen's fourth show with Burroughs. So she was actually my teacher. Um, and her artistry had kind of started to show, and that's why we won. We won because of you know, our vocal quality, and the complication of the music that we were singing, but also because of Jen's artistry. And I will never forget, the Mickey Mouse confetti that they shot into the air, just like the feeling, like it was one of those moments that really gets you hooked. And so I think that was a night where I like was really really was hooked in, and winning that first national competition. And then as a teacher, there have been many many incredible moments. I mean, going on the Oprah show was definitely one of them. Um, my very first national competition, my first year of teaching, we had gone to Orlando, Florida, and when we won that competition, it was, you know, like the moment that I realized that I didn't ruin the program, kind of thing. And I was like very grateful to everybody around me who like propped up my success. Um, we had a huge national win in 2013. It was sort of like a champion of champions kind of competition. Um, and that was an undefeated season for us, which is incredibly difficult to do. Southern California has, I would say, like three of the top 10 show choirs in the country all are here. And so we go to competitions every weekend, just local things at one high school or another, and it's like a nationals every weekend at the top division, because you have these incredible schools, and so it's very hard to have an undefeated season. So that was kind of a big deal. Um, and I don't know, after a while, it kind of is like it's not the championships that you remember. It's like it's the warm-up rooms, it's the moments where the kids lock in, um, when they totally get it, or um, when we were in the warm-up room of our last competition of the year, and it was at the San Diego Convention Center, and we were doing Katy Perry fireworks. And I remember that parents had secretly put together um, to have actual pyrotechnics on stage because it was at a convention center and they had like raised the money and spent the money to have a fire marshal and go in the day before and like hang actual like sparklers and flash pots and stuff for their show. And I just remember getting to tell the kids about it like 5 minutes before they went on stage, and just the like sheer excitement of the kids, um, and then the energy that that like put into the show, that was just beyond. Um, so there's, I don't know, every year has magical moments. This past year there were many, and so I just try to live in the moment and enjoy the process. That was my theme for last year, kind of coming out of the pandemic, was we were really, really working our butts off to like just keep things together and keep things going. But I was like, it's time to start really enjoying it again. Like let's have fun and enjoy the work and enjoy the rehearsals. And so I felt like we really did that. The shows turned out incredible, but mostly it was just like having a great group of students and enjoying the fruits of that, and like everybody pushing themselves together. And when you create something extraordinary, like, and it usually happens in the rehearsal, like when you hit a certain chord the right way, or you do a certain section of choreography and it just like really really hits. Like those are the moments that you're just like, yes. And everybody can kind of feel it. So I don't know.
Yeah. A lot of magical moments over the years. Well, I'd also love to ask you, how can people show their support for the music program at Burroughs?
Well, I would say the number one way is just buying tickets and coming to see the show. Our philosophy is that we are a performing arts organization, so we try um, to do a lot of our fundraising just by selling tickets to the shows. But um, if you can't make it to the show, you can also make a donation on our website. Our website is JBHS VMA, like Vocal Music Association, jbhsvma.com. And there's a link there for buying tickets on the top right corner. So you can go to that website and buy tickets as the shows happen. There's also a link where you can donate. And then, I mean, that's also where we thank and promote our advertisers. Another great way to support the program is to just support our fundraisers. The kids are trying to fundraise to go on all the trips and to pay for all the costumes and stuff. And so we have a great advertising program called the Golden Note Program that a lot of local businesses in Burbank support. We're really grateful to them. It helps the kids raise money to go on all the trips and things. And we put the ads in our program, in our pop show program, but also like on our website. You can have your businesses link on the website. um, some people even do those ads like personally. Even if you don't have a business, you can be part of that program. But yeah, I mean, every time that a kid comes and tries to sell you a raffle ticket or a box of See's candy, we appreciate every support, whether it's that or a ticket or a donation, or we're available to hire. I'll throw that out there. If you need a group of singers and you've got money, no offense, but we do get a lot of performance invitations. So um, but we've had some really great gigs that have helped our fundraising efforts, by people who are hiring us to perform in places. So, all of the things, any way you want. If you have an idea, if you want to uh, you know, donate a valuable piece of art or put us in your will, let's talk. Give me a call.
It's an amazing program, worthy of so much support, of course. Thank you so much for joining me, telling me a little bit about your story and more about the Vocal Music Association at Burroughs. I appreciate it and wish you a really wonderful school year coming up.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And thanks to my Burbank. Just like all the work that you guys do is so great. The community really appreciates you, and we appreciate the support and the publicity. And we'll see everybody at the shows.
That's right. Thank you so much, Brendan. Thank you for joining me.
Of course. Have a great one.
You too. You too.
My Burbank Talks would like to thank all of my Burbank's advertisers for their continued support. Burbank Water and Power, Cusimano Real Estate Group, Providence St. Joseph Medical Center, Burbank Chamber of Commerce, UME Credit Union, Tequila's Cantina and Grill, UCLA Health, Gain Credit Union, Community Chevrolet, Media City Credit Union, Eric Garcia of Farmers Insurance, Providence High School, UPS Store on 3rd Street, and Hill Street Cafe.